The message came without warning. Across the stars, the great alliance known as the Galactic Concord sent out a call. War was coming. A powerful empire, the Void Dynasty, had begun swallowing worlds. Their fleets were unstoppable. Their soldiers showed no mercy. The Concord needed warriors, strong, fearless, and ready to fight. The call was simple. All who can stand, come forward. Most races answered carefully. They sent their best soldiers, their finest commanders. They came in sleek ships, polished armor, perfect formations. They were disciplined. They were precise. Then Earth answered, and the galaxy learned what true chaos looked like. Captain Daniel Shaw leaned back in his chair, boots resting on the control panel of the battlecruiser Iron Resolve. The transmission from the Concord played again, the voice calm, almost pleading. "We request immediate military assistance," Shaw snorted. "They request." He looked at his crew. "You hear that? They're asking nicely." Across the bridge, his first officer, Lena Carter, smirked. "They don't know what they're asking for." Shaw grinned. "Let's educate them." On Earth, the response was instant. Governments argued, leaders debated, but the soldiers, the fighters, the ones who had spent their lives in war zones, in backly brawls, in mercenary bands and black ops units, they didn't wait for permission. Ryan Holt, a former pit fighter with scars across his knuckles, heard the call and grabbed his gear. "Finally," he muttered. "A real fight." Alina Diaz, an engineer who had turned battlefield scrap into working weapons, grinned as she packed her tools. Time to show them how humans really build things. Across cities, colonies, and outposts, the same scene played out. Ships fueled, guns loaded, armor strapped on. The Concord had asked for warriors. Humanity was sending an army. When the first human ships arrived at the Concord's staging ground, the reaction was confusion. Concord officers stared at the mismatched fleet. Some ships were sleek military vessels. Others were retrofitted freighters, jury-rigged with guns. One looked like it had been welded together from 3 different wrecks. A Concord admiral, a tall man with silver markings on his uniform, stepped forward. "This is unexpected." Shaw, standing at the front of the human delegation, shrugged. "You called." "Yeah, we came wrong." The admiral hesitated. "Your forces are irregular." Lena Carter, leaning against a crate of ammunition, smirked. "You wanted fighters, not parade soldiers?" The admiral opened his mouth, then closed it. He had seen warriors from 100 species, but these humans, they didn't stand at attention. They didn't follow protocol. They looked excited. The testing began. The Concord needed to see what these Deathworlders could do. They set up war games, simulated battles, trials of skill. They expected humans to struggle. They were wrong. Ryan Holt walked into the close-quarters combat trial. His opponent was a Concord champion, a veteran of a dozen wars. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Holt broke the man's arm, swept his legs, and put a knife to his throat. "Yield," Holt asked, cheerful. The champion tapped out. Alina Diaz was given a broken Concord shield generator and told to fix it. She did. Then she modified it. When the testers activated it, the generator didn't just make a shield, exploded in a pulse of energy, frying every drone in the area. Diaz shrugged. He said make it work. Didn't say how. Lena Carter took the sniper trial. The Concord marksman used high-tech rifles calibrated for perfect shots. Carter used an old Earth rifle, iron sights, no stabilizers. She didn't miss, not once. By the end of the trials, the Concord commanders were silent. One finally spoke. "These aren't soldiers," Shaw grinned. "No, they're humans." And in the shadows, the Void Dynasty scouts watched. And for the first time, they felt fear. The Concord had seen what individual humans could do. Now they wanted to see how they fought as an army. The war games began. Void Dynasty's tactics were simple. Strike fast, hit hard, leave no survivors. The Concord had lost world after world to their relentless attacks. Now, they needed to know if humans could stand against them. The first test was a simulated siege. A fortified position, surrounded, limited supplies. Enemy forces closing in. Most species would dig in, hold defensive lines, wait for reinforcements. Humans did not wait. Ryan Holt crouched behind a broken wall, peering at the enemy drones advancing through the ruins. His squad, a mix of Earth Marines and mercenaries, waited for his signal. "All right," he said, grinning. "Let's give them a welcome party." Concord observers watched from a safe distance, expecting a slow, grinding defense. They did not expect Holt's squad to charge. The humans rushed the enemy, not in a disciplined line, but in a wild, screaming wave. They fired as they ran, not bothering with careful shots. They closed the distance in seconds, crashing into the drones with knives, rifle butts, and bare fists. One Concord officer stared in disbelief, not even trying to hold the position. Lena Carter, perched on a rooftop with a rifle, took a slow breath and fired. A drone's head exploded. "I hold," she muttered, "when you can just kill them all." The siege was over in minutes. The next test was a fleet battle. The Void Dynasty's ships were faster, better armed, and more numerous. The Concord had lost every major engagement against them. Captain Daniel Shaw stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching the holographic display of the simulated enemy fleet. His crew waited. Shaw cracked his knuckles. "All right, let's show them how humans fly." The Concord expected cautious maneuvers, hit-and-run tactics, careful strikes. The Iron Resolve went straight for the enemy flagship at full speed. Alarms blared as the ship's engines roared. The Concord observers panicked. They're going to ram them. Shaw's grin never faded. "Damn right we are." At the last second, the Iron Resolve veered, its guns blasting at point-blank range. The enemy flagship's shields flickered and died. Then the human boarding pods launched, slamming into the hull. Inside, Ryan Holt and his team stormed the corridors, shooting anything that moved. The simulation ended with the enemy ship in flames. The final test was the hardest. A planet under attack. Civilians trapped. Enemy forces everywhere. The Concord had never won this scenario. Elena Diaz looked at the schematics of the city, then at the broken equipment around her. She smiled. "Give me an hour," she said. The Concord officers didn't understand. An hour, the attack would be over by then. But Diaz wasn't planning to defend. She was planning to fight back. With scrap metal, spare parts, and sheer stubbornness, she built a weapon. Not a shield, not a barricade, a bomb, a big one. When the enemy forces pushed into the city, Diaz was waiting. She pressed the detonator. The explosion lit up the sky. The simulation flickered, then shut down. The system couldn't handle the damage. The Concord officers were speechless. Diaz wiped grease from her hands. Problem solved. By the end of the trials, the Concord had seen enough. Humans didn't follow rules. They didn't fight fair. They didn't care about proper tactics. They just won. One admiral finally spoke. "We asked for warriors." Shaw nodded, "And you got them." The admiral took a deep breath. The Void Dynasty won't know what hit them. The real war began at Krelisvi. The Void Dynasty's fleet arrived like a black tide, ships sleek and deadly. They had crushed every world that stood against them. Now they came for the Concord's last stronghold in the sector. The Concord forces braced for destruction. Then human ships dropped out of warp. Not in formation, not in neat lines. It came like a storm. Captain Daniel Shaw gripped the armrests of his command chair. As the Iron Resolve shuddered under enemy fire, alarms blared. The Void Dynasty's flagship, a monstrous vessel called the Dusk Razor, loomed ahead. "Evasive pattern Delta," Shaw barked. His pilot, Jake Morrow, yanked the controls hard. The ship spun, dodging a volley of plasma fire. "But Delta, that's not a real pattern." Shaw grinned. "It is now." The Iron Resolve barrel rolled straight toward the enemy. On the surface of Krelisvi, Ryan Holt's boots hit dirt as his drop pod slammed into the battlefield. Around him, human soldiers poured from their pods like angry hornets. The Void Dynasty's ground forces marched in perfect lines, their armor gleaming. Holt spat on the ground. "Pretty." Then he raised his rifle. "Let's mess them up." The humans attacked, not with orderly volleys, not with careful advances. They attacked like madmen, some charged screaming. Others flanked through rubble. A few just started shooting anything that moved. The Dynasty soldiers faltered. They'd never faced warriors who fought like this. Lena Carter lay flat on a crumbling rooftop, her rifle steady. Through her scope, she saw the enemy commanders barking orders from their fortified position. Too far for normal rifles. Not too far for hers. She exhaled. squeezed the trigger. Commander's head snapped back. His body crumpled. Chaos erupted below as the Dynasty forces scrambled. Carter reloaded. One down. In orbit, the Iron Resolve took another hit. Shaw's teeth rattled as sparks flew from a console. "We can't take much more of this," an engineer shouted. Lena Diaz pushed through the smoke, tools in hand. "Then let's give them something else to worry about." She crawled into a damaged weapons bay. With quick hands, she rerouted power from life support to the main cannon. The weapon hummed to life, glowing red-hot. "Fire now." She yelled. The Iron Resolve's main gun roared. The shot punched straight through the Duskrazer's shields. For the first time, the mighty Void Dynasty flagship staggered. On the ground, Holt's squad pushed forward. The enemy was falling back. Then new orders came through Holt's earpiece. Shaw's voice, rough with static. "Change of plans. We're taking their flagship. Get to the extraction point." Holt grinned. "You heard the man. Going spaceborne." His squad cheered as they turned toward the waiting dropships. Aboard the Duskrazor, Queen Isabella Valen watched her screens with growing fury. Her perfect battle was unraveling. Her soldiers faltered. Her ships took damage she'd never seen before, and now... "Your Majesty," a officer shouted. "Boarding pods are inbound." Valen stood from her throne. What? The first pod smashed through the hangar doors. The humans had come aboard. The inside of the Duskrazor smelled like oil and fear. Ryan Holt kicked open the smoking remains of the boarding pod door, rifle ready. His squad poured out behind him, weapons up. The hangar was huge, empty except for a few scattered tools and the bodies of crewmen who had gotten clear fast enough. "Holt," Holt said. "They'll send troops any second." They ran for the nearest corridor just as the alarms started wailing. Red lights flashed. Mechanical voice repeated warnings in a language none of them understood. It didn't matter. They knew what it meant. The hunt was on. Captain Shaw watched from the Iron Resolve as the battle raged outside. His ship was battered but still fighting. The Duskrazor floated like a wounded beast, its weapons firing less often now. "Status on Holt's team?" Shaw asked. Lena Carter, still on the surface, spoke through the cum. Last signal showed them inside. "No contact since." Shaw nodded. "Then we keep these bastards busy." He turned to his weapons officer. "Hit them again. Harder this time." The Iron Resolve fired another volley. The Duskrazor shuddered under the impact. Holt's team moved through narrow service corridors. "They're coming," she whispered. "Left side. 20 meters. Holt grinned. "Head up here." The squad took positions. 3 knelt with rifles ready. 2 others pulled grenades from their belts. First Void Dynasty soldiers rounded the corner in perfect formation. The grenades landed at their feet. The explosion shook the corridor. Before the smoke cleared, the humans were moving forward, shooting anything still standing. "Clear," Holt said. "Keep moving." Queen Valen paced her command center. Screens showed the battle outside, the damage to her ship, the human boarding parties cutting through her best troops. "This is impossible," she muttered. An officer rushed in, bleeding from his forehead. "Your Majesty, we must evacuate. They've breached Sector 7. Valen's hand went to the pistol at her hip. "Bring me the human leaders. I'll deal with them myself." Holt's team fought through 3 more squads of Dynasty soldiers. In the narrow corridors, help the enemy couldn't use their numbers. Then they reached a wide-open space. A loading dock, maybe. And waiting for them stood 20 heavily armed soldiers in gleaming black armor. At their front stood a tall woman in a flowing dark coat. Queen Valen. Holt wiped blood from his lip. "Well, this just got interesting." Valen raised her pistol. "Surrender now, and I'll make your deaths quick." Holt laughed. "Lady, you don't know humans very well." The shooting started. On the Iron Resolve, Shaw watched as the Duskrazor's weapons finally went silent. "Got them," the sensor officer yelled. "Their main power is down." Shaw stood. "Time to end this. Prep the Marines. We're going in." As he strapped on his combat armor, the cum crackled. Holt's voice strained but laughing. "Hey, Captain, you might want to hurry." 8. We found their queen. Gunfire echoed through the transmission. Shaw grabbed his rifle. On our way, Holt ducked behind a crate as energy bolts burned the air above him. 2 of his squad were down, not dead, but hurt bad. The rest kept firing, but they were pinned. Valen's voice rang out. "You see now? You cannot win." Then the far wall exploded. Smoke filled the room. When it cleared, Captain Shaw stood in the new hole, rifle smoking. Behind him poured 24 more human soldiers. Valen's eyes went wide. Shaw nodded to Holt. "Sorry, we're late." Holt grinned. "Just in time for the fun part." Smoke hung thick in the air. The loading dock looked like a war zone. Craters from grenades, scorch marks from energy weapons. Bodies of Dynasty soldiers littered the floor. Queen Valen stood with her back to the wall, pistol in hand. Perfect hair had come loose. Her fine coat was torn. For the first time in her life, she felt fear crawling up her throat. Captain Shaw stepped forward, rifle aimed at her chest. "It's over." Valen's remaining soldiers formed a tight circle around her, weapons shaking in their hands. They'd never seen humans fight before. Never seen anything like this. Holt wiped blood from his eyes. "Just give up, lady. You lost." Valen's lips curled into a snarl. "I am a queen. Do not surrender." Shaw sighed. Had to do this the hard way. The fight lasted 17 seconds. When it ended, Valen stood alone. Her soldiers lay unconscious or disarmed. Marines moved in, securing weapons, checking the wounded. Valen raised her pistol. Lena Carter's shot rang out from somewhere in the shadows. The gun flew from Valen's hand, her fingers numb from the impact. "Next one goes between your eyes." Carter's voice came through the smoke. Valen stared at her trembling hand. This isn't possible." Shaw stepped closer. "You made one mistake." "What?" Valen spat. "You picked a fight with humans." On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, the comms officer suddenly stood up. "Captain, the Dynasty fleet, they're retreating." Cheers erupted through the ship. On the surface of Krellis V, Concord soldiers watched in disbelief as the enemy forces pulled back. In the loading dock, Valen's face went pale. "No, they can't. My orders, Holt laughed. "Looks like your boys don't want to die for you after all." Shaw grabbed Valen's arm. "You're coming with us. The Concord will want to talk to you." As they marched her away, Valen kept whispering the same thing over and over. Impossible. 3 days later, the celebration rocked the Concord homeworld. Humans drank with Concord officers. Mechanics compared weapons with star pilots. Even the strictest admirals couldn't hide their smiles. In a quiet corner, Shaw sat with his crew. Holt had his arm in a sling. Diaz was rewiring something small and dangerous looking. Carter cleaned her rifle with methodical care. A Concord admiral approached, holding 2 glasses of something that glowed blue. He handed one to Shaw. "We owe you everything," the admiral said. Shaw took the drink. "You just owed someone who fights dirty." They drank as fireworks lit up the sky. 1 month later, the galaxy had changed. The Void Dynasty crumbled without its queen. The Concord grew stronger. New alliances formed, and humans, they found themselves with a new reputation. When the next call for warriors went out, it came with different wording. All capable species may send champions. Humanity. Just come as you are on Earth, in colonies, on distant outposts. Men and women heard the message. They smiled.